Finding the right investing app can be a nightmare. There's a ton of different accounts out there. You've got robo-investors, ISAs, GIAs, SIPs, lifetime ISAs, done for you, do it yourself, and ETF platforms, just to name a few. Finding the right platform can be a complete minefield. Well, luckily I've spent the week comparing all of the top platforms, and I've put together this guide to make the whole process a lot easier. This guide was a ton of work, so please do take a minute to hit that like button to lift my spirits and let me know that you want to see more of these, as they do take a ton of effort to make. So let's get started. Now, I did have a realization when looking at the big picture of what I document on YouTube, and that was that I do preach a lot about a stocks and shares ISA account. Now, before jumping into this comparison, there's a couple of key areas that I need to mention. While a stocks and shares ISA is great, you don't always need one. Generally speaking, with a stocks and shares ISA, you end up with a more limited choice of options and likely end up paying a higher FX fee, which is a currency conversion fee, and in some cases fees for the account. There's two scenarios in particular when I think you might not need one, and if so, it could vastly reduce your costs. First, within your regular trading account, you can make capital gains tax, which is $12,300 profit, as well as $2,000 in dividend allowance. This means that you can essentially make a $14,300 profit without paying any tax. So if you don't think you'll make that much, you likely don't need an ISA. But you need to consider this in your whole investment strategy. Second, and more importantly, if you just started investing today, let's say £200 per month, assuming an average return of 7%, it's actually going to be 6 years before you need to transfer that into an ISA, where the allowance is £20,000. If it's £100 per month you'd be saving, in this case it would be 11 years. So you could actually save yourself years worth of fees, which really does add up, and especially on a smaller balance, those fees can really chunk into your investments. So that's why I'd recommend looking at some of these accounts. Some of them do offer ISAs and some don't. But importantly, the message is to not pick a company just because it offers an ISA. And even more importantly, before you look at these accounts, you should consider whether a lifetime ISA suits your investment goals. The lifetime ISA allows you to deposit up to £4,000 per year and get 25% for free from the government, up to £1,000. Now that's essentially a 25% instant return on your money. There are catches, and it's that you have to either use it towards a property, be it a first time buyer, or towards retirement, which is withdrawable at 60. So you do need to consider if those options apply to you. There is an option to withdraw it and you get a 25% penalty, but it actually ends up more expensive to withdraw it than put money in when you do the maths, because it's on the total sum, not just removing that bonus. If you need to have easy access to your money, then a general stocks and shares account is going to be the better option. But don't be afraid of having multiple accounts. In fact, you're probably going to anyway. I've got a lifetime ISA, a regular ISA, and I've got multiple general investment accounts. There are quite limited providers when it comes to a lifetime ISA. I'm using Hargreaves Lansdown, and I'll leave a link to those down below. Also, just a quick mention, as there's no sponsor for this video, if you want to join our awesome Discord community and get my latest buys and sells and portfolio updates, there's a link to the Patreon down below. We chat every day within there, and we're building up a really good tight-knit group of people who are all working towards the same goals. You can also ask me questions directly, any questions you might have about investing or stock picks. So now you understand those, let's dive straight into the comparison. Now this chart is a comparison of what I think are the top providers. Now, you're going to say there's some missing here. I did actually compile this way down from a much wider list. But these are the providers that have come out the cheapest and the ones that I would recommend. First up, we've got DEGIRO. Now, DEGIRO you might not have heard of because they're not as known as some of the other brands. But they are in fact one of the oldest companies on the list, and they're also the biggest stock provider based in the Netherlands. And they operate all around Europe. Next up, we've got Freetrade, which I'm sure you've heard of. Then we've got the new investing app on the scene, which is Lightyear, which is really interesting. And that's by some of the guys that worked at Wise, which I'm really excited by because that's the online bank that I've been using for multiple years and I've really enjoyed it. Next up, we've got Invest Engine, who are a big player in ETFs and could change the game when it comes to ETFs. Next up, we've got Stake, which I'm sure you've heard of. They're one of the cheapest ways to buy US stocks. Then we've got Wombat, who are really interesting. They've got some stocks as well as some ETFs. We've got the famous eToro, which I'm sure you've seen everywhere. There's another new investment app called Orca, which I'll also be looking at. Some of the other providers you might think that are missing, you've got Hargreaves Lansdown, Interactive Investor, IG, Fidelity, Vanguard. I think they're all good, but they're more expensive. Vanguard, again, are quite cheap, but I don't like them because you can only invest in Vanguard funds. I prefer companies that allow you to invest in the whole market and not just in their own products. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at is the platform fees itself. And that's the ongoing charge that you have to pay to use the platform. So first up, DEGIRO comes in at a cheap €2.50 per year. It's actually free, but you have to pay €2.50 for each additional market that you add on. So for example, if you want to add the US market or the Russian market or the Chinese market, you're going to need to pay per market that you add on. But that's a yearly cost, which is essentially peanuts. Next up, we've got free trade. Now, free trade, in fact, do have two prices. Their normal account is $0, and that is probably enough for most basic people. But they also have a free trade pro account, which has more stocks and shares available. So if you use free trade regularly, you'll kind of realize it is a kind of freemium model. Once you get in there, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to end up just upgrading. Lightyear is really exciting. Their platform costs $0. Invest Engine, again, that costs $0. Stake, again, $0. And Wombat just charges you £1 per month, plus 0.10% of your total balance. eToro, again, is free, but they do charge you $5 to withdraw it when you do so, which in some ways is good because it encourages you to keep the money in and not just keep taking it out. And Orca, again, is at $0. Next up, we're going to look at whether the platform offers an ISA functionality. Now, as I mentioned, that's not essential, but it's quite interesting to see if these platforms do. So DEGIRO doesn't at present offer an ISA, and that's probably because they're not a UK-based company. Although I'm sure it's on their roadmap as they're trying to expand in the UK at the moment, it's not something they currently offer. Free Trade offers an ISA which is £3 per month. Lightyear has an ISA coming soon. We don't know whether it's going to be this year, but it could be in the next year. They're a relatively new app, so they're still in their early stages. Invest Engine offers an ISA for free, which is really fantastic. Stake, unfortunately, doesn't have an ISA. Wombat is free again. eToro doesn't have an ISA. Orca is again free. I think it's a bit of a shame that some of these platforms don't offer an ISA because it's great for us in the UK, but that is the current situation that we're looking at. So let's look at how much does it actually cost to trade on the platform. So DEGIRO on UK stocks, it's £1.75. Free trade is $0, hence free trade. Lightyear is $0. Invest Engine doesn't have UK stocks. Stake doesn't have UK stocks. Wombat is $0. eToro is $0, but there's a catch in that they make money on the spread. So the price you pay does vary a little bit and you charge a spread fee. And that's the only reason I'd be a little bit cautious with eToro. Although in some cases it's not very much money, it's an extra hidden cost that you need to be aware of. So the free trading isn't really free. Orca's quite simple, although it looks a little bit more complicated. They charge you £1 per trade if it's under 1k. Each £1,000 over 1k, it's an additional pound. So for example, if it's £2,000, it's £2, £3,000, £3, etc. But I think for the majority of people, you're just going to be paying £1 per trade. For US stocks, DEGIRO's $0. Free trade is $0. Lightyear is $0. Invest Engine doesn't have individual stocks. Stake is $0 again, and Wombat is $0. eToro, again, $0 with a catch, and Orca has them coming soon. So all these platforms are incredibly cheap if you want to buy US stocks, and that's going to be the majority of your main trendy stocks that you're going to hear about. Your Microsoft, your Tesla, your Apple are all going to be US stocks. Now again, these platforms are very cheap when it comes to ETFs. Now DEGIRO is $0, but it's from their select range of ETFs, which is pretty much going to be the main ETFs that you're going to want to buy. You've got your S&P 500s and all those kind of select ETFs. You're only going to have to pay a fee if it's an ETF not mentioned on that list. Free trade is $0, Lightyear is $0 again. Now Invest Engine charges you $0, which is really interesting. So Invest Engine are essentially an ETF platform that don't charge you. Stake is $0 again, Wombat is $0 again, eToro $0 with that hidden cost yet again. Orca is their same structure of £1. So FX fees, this is where it gets more exciting, but also where you see the difference in the costs. So an FX fee is essentially the cost when you go to buy US stock, which is in dollars, but you're paying in pounds. And some of these work a little differently. So DEGIRO, for example, charges you 0.25%, but the way they charge you is when you convert money. So for example, if you were to convert £1,000, you're going to pay that 0.25%. Then you go and buy a US stock, But when you go and sell that US stock, you will keep the money in dollars and you will only pay that fee when you convert it back again. Now in actual fact, this makes it way cheaper. So instead of paying the FX fee each and every time, you're just paying it once. So you can then use those dollars to buy another company, which is a really smart way of thinking about it. Free Trade offer a 0.45%, which seems tiny, but it's actually one of the more expensive ones on this list. And that's where they're starting to make their money back. Now Lightyear are a bit more interesting. They charge you 0% fees as long as you spend under £3,000 per month, which I'm sure for the majority of us, that's going to be the case. If you go over that, it's going to be 0.35%, but I'm pretty sure the majority of us are going to be under. Now Invest Engine, believe it or not, charge you 0. Their fees, in my opinion, are stupidly low. Now there may be some kind of fees associated with the fund, but that's going to be the same across all of these platforms. Stakes fee is quite similar to DeGiro, and that they will charge you on converting the currency. Wombat again is very low. It's going to end up being on average about 0.07%, and that's the average charge with a fund that you're going to see across the board. eToro do a similar thing again, 0.5% on the currency as a whole. Now Orca haven't launched their US stocks yet, but they're looking to do it at 0.95%, which is going to be competitive with the likes of the big boys, so your Hargreaves, Lansdowne, etc. But in my book, it's not going to be competitive with the other providers on this list, which is where I kind of see them sitting. I don't really see them as being one of these £1 billion providers. They're kind of in line with the other companies on this list, so I think they do have to look at reducing that. Now let's talk about something really important, which is what's actually on their platform. So let's talk about what's actually on the platforms and what you're able to buy. So in terms of shares, DeGiro by far has the widest selection out of all of these, and it has over 20,000 shares. I don't know the exact number, but I know it's in the tens of thousands, and that's in over 50 different markets. So the amount you can choose from is actually massive. Free Trade has over 5,648. You're probably going to need a pro account to get access to all of those. Lightyear currently has 3,000 stocks and counting. Currently they're on US stocks, and hopefully they'll add more markets soon. Within there, you keep all of your money within US dollars, and they offer a multi-currency account, so you can keep money in dollars, money in pounds, and trade in different markets that way. So that's one way you can save some costs when you're investing. Invest Engine don't have any shares, they're only funds. Stake have over 6,000 US companies. Wombat only have 42, which is a hand-picked selection, which is the most popular, and they're aiming to be really beginner friendly. eToro have around 2,500. You kind of expect them to have more being such a big platform, and Orca have over 250, and at the moment they're only UK stocks, and that includes the ETFs. The next thing I want to talk about is fractional shares. Now, fractional share is a way to buy, say, £10 worth of a company instead of having to buy an entire share, which could be maybe £100. Now, DeGiro doesn't have that, and to be honest, a lot of traditional platforms won't. It's generally something that's aimed towards newer platforms that allows beginners an easier way to invest. So DeGiro are quite traditional in that sense. Free Trade offer fractional shares, so do Lightyear. Invest Engine don't because they don't have shares. Stake do, Wombat do, eToro do again, and Orca doesn't. Now let's talk about funds. So in terms of funds, I can't get the exact number from some of these because I'm just going off their websites. I've asked some of their team, but the general consensus is that it's combined. So on DeGiro, the amount of funds is actually combined, but I expect that they've pretty much got every fund that you could want. Free Trade have 569 and counting. Lightyear have funds coming soon. It's not a feature just yet. Invest Engine have over 260, and that is generally going to be the main selection of ones you'd want to buy. To be honest, you could probably get by with around 50 funds. Stake, I can't get the exact numbers, they're combined. Wombat have around 25, and that's their own. So they try and theme their funds to make it easy, things like green energy, you've got a tech one, etc. So that can be a nice beginner friendly add-on if you're not quite sure what kind of fund you want. eToro have around 264, and on Orca they're combined within their 250 total. All of these providers have a mobile app, so that's something you'd be glad to know. Now next up we've got, are they available on desktop? Now some of you, I'm sure, might be a bit like me and you would kind of like a desktop version. DeGiro offer one, Free Trade don't, Lightyear don't, Invest Engine do, which is nice, Stake offer one, Wombat don't, eToro have their desktop platform, and Orca don't. I also want to talk about, are there kind of research options available on the app? Now traditionally I wouldn't use my investment app to do my research, I would use a standalone platform. I actually use platforms like TipRanks to find my kind of analysis, but some of these do have research features built in, so that might be something you want to consider. Now DeGiro offer it, Free Trade don't. Lightyear, which is really surprising, they have features in there which free trade should have had years ago. So there's kind of analysis which gives you good indications whether a stock's a buy or a sell. And I think, speaking to the Lightyear team, this is a kind of route they're thinking about going down. Rather than being just an app that charges you money, they may try and charge for additional service features. So at the moment, they're trying to build a lot of data into it and kind of provide it as a more detailed service. And that's really interesting to me because the main complaint I've seen across the board is the stocks and kind of shares analysis on these platforms is just not good enough. And coming from the people at Wise, they could be the people to do this. If they do get an ISA and a SIP, I really think that they could be the biggest threat to free trade. So I'm really interested to see what happens. Invest Engine do have some kind of research. Stake have some research, but for more research, you're going to have to sign up for Stake Black, which is their additional program which costs. And that integrates with My Wall Street, and that gives you kind of buy and sell signals. It's quite nice because My Wall Street's pretty decent, but you're going to have to pay for that functionality. Wombat has some information, quite limited again. eToro has some information, but not a lot. And Orca again has some. But I wouldn't really call these investment tools. Next up, my favourite thing from my design background is user interface. Now DeGiro I've given 9.5 out of 10. I don't think I'd give anybody a 10 out of 10 because I think there's always room for improvement. Now the reason I've rated them so highly is that their platform has so much more features than anybody else. DeGiro is essentially a full-blown platform with really cheap fees. Free trade I'd give 7 out of 10. It looks nice, but it's lacking some core features which I'd like to see. Maybe some more analysis, make it a bit more robust because it's kind of buggy at times, and their iPad app's a bit lacking, and I'd like to see a desktop platform. Lightyear I've given a 9 out of 10 because their app's super sexy. Invest Engine again is really well designed and laid out. It's really easy for beginners. Stake looks cool, but I think it could be improved, so I've given that one a 7 out of 10. I'd say that one is really kind of on par with free trade. Wombat I've given an 8 out of 10 because it's really well designed. It's a bit on the basic side, but that's a market that it's aimed at. eToro, now I've given eToro a higher mark than I'd want to. I've always thought that the eToro website is not the best designed, but I have to give them props for at least having a desktop platform. Orca again, I'd give a 7 out of 10. It's actually a bit nicer design-wise, but I'd say feature-wise it's on par with free trade and stake. Now a really important thing is FCA Compliance, and that's kind of security. So I'm glad to say all of these providers are registered with the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, and I wouldn't include any providers that weren't. But a really interesting feature to look at is the company age. So DeGiro is 14 years old, free trade 6, Lightyear is only 16 months, it's fairly new, Invest Engine is 5 years old, Stake 3, Wombat 4, eToro 14, and Orca's just 2. That's quite interesting because you can judge whether you want a company that's been around longer or you're happy to take a chance on one of these new guys. Of course, whichever one you go for, your money's going to be protected no matter what. Also, I have to mention, no matter which of these providers you go for, you're going to be covered by the FCA, and you're going to be covered by some kind of compensation on your cash assets. So whether that's the FCSC or DeGiro uses the German regulator, how it works with all of these, the only main protection you need is on the cash balance that you keep in your account. If the company went bust, that's the money you need to be aware of, and that is what that compensation does cover. The actual companies and the stocks and shares you own are held as separate entities in a third party. So don't worry if the company goes bust for some reason, you're not going to be kind of lost, you're still going to own those shares. Now something else which I thought was quite interesting is to highlight the key benefits of each platform. So the key benefits of DeGiro is more research and it's a more advanced platform. Free Trade offer a SIP which is nice, and that's an additional $9.99 per month, or it's £7 if you're already a pro user. The nice thing about Lightyear is they already have the functionality for stop losses, which protects you, so if the stock's going down, you can say sell here, so you don't lose too much money, which to be honest is a feature that all of these should have by default. The other nice thing about them is they have data analysis, which is something at their core, and I think that's an approach that other platforms should really adopt. What's nice about Invest Engine, they actually have this unique option to have a business account, so that's something that I'm going to be investigating. So I can put my business money into Invest Engine and have my money grow. They also have this one-click portfolio rebalancing, which I really like as a feature. Stake have Stake Black, although you've got to pay. It's really nice that they're bringing this extra data in from My Wall Street, so you're getting things like your buy and sell alerts. Wombat have roundups and auto invest, so that can help you save more money on a regular basis. With eToro, I really like the fact you can have crypto in your account and stocks and shares, and I really like their copy trade feature, which can be really fun. What's unique with Orca is the fact they have these collections, which is essentially their own design funds, which are really nicely designed. And that can make the investing process way more interesting. So let's move on to the good part, which is the bonus, which is what you get for signing up. DeGiro at the moment don't offer any kind of sign-up bonus. Freetrade are giving you a free share. Lightyear will give you $10, so you can invest that how you like. Invest Engine are going to give you £25. Stake will offer you a free share. Wombat is giving you £20. eToro doesn't have anything, and Orca is also going to give you a free share. So you might look at this chart and you think, oh my god, this is crazy. Where do I go from here? Well, let's make it a whole lot easier. So platform, I have to give the winner to Lightyear, Invest Engine and Stake, and Orca for their 0 fees. ISA, I have to give that to Invest Engine, Orca and Wombat because they're all charging 0. So UK stocks, I would give that to Freetrade and Wombat. US stocks is quite a few charging 0. ETFs, again, quite a few charging 0. FX fee, I have to give it to Invest Engine because they are charging peanuts. Wombat, again, are charging a really low fee. Shares, I have to give to DeGiro because they've just got so many to choose from. Fractional shares, you've got Freetrade, Lightyear, Stake, Wombat and eToro. Funds, I think all of these platforms have got a good selection. Mobile, again, they're all okay. Desktop is DeGiro, Invest Engine and Stake, and eToro, but I don't really like their desktop platform. If you're looking for research, it has to be DeGiro or Lightyear. User interface has to be DeGiro, Lightyear or Invest Engine. And if we're going on company age, it's got to be DeGiro or eToro. Now you might think, well, where do I go from here and which one of these should I sign up for? Typically, I would do a tier list and I would put them all in order from S tier down to F tier. Now the reason I'm not going to do it on this one, all of these platforms have got different use cases depending on your investment goal. And what I would actually advise is signing up for a few of these and trying them out. Sign up, maybe deposit a little bit of money, get that sign up bonus and have a look at the platform and see what you think. It's important that you actually really like the platform, like the user interface, because that's going to encourage you to use it on a regular basis. If you get an app that you don't really like, then you're not going to stick to it. And the good thing is with an ISA, you're stuck to one account, but with these, you could open an account with all of them. So if it was me, here's what I would do. For 95% of people, I would open an account with Invest Engine. If you're a beginner, you don't want to be trying to pick individual stocks and shares, you can open an account with them and you can just buy something like an S&P 500, invest on a regular basis, and you're going to have practically 0 fees. And later, if you like the platform, convert it to an ISA, and if you're still struggling from there, take their managed service at 0.25% and let them do it for you. I'd also open an account at Lightyear because I think they could be a game changer in the space, and it's worth having an account and taking a look at the platform. DeGiro, I would open an account even if you think it's a bit scary. You can see what a more advanced platform does look like. And then you can make a decision whether you want a beginner platform or want something a bit more detailed. If you're nervous about investing, Wombat's a good option because it's so beginner friendly. Although you are a bit limited at the moment with stocks, they do have their own funds and it's quite simple. If you're interested in US shares, Stake's also really interesting. And lastly, I'd say there's eToro, which is a really good platform. That's really interesting if you want to try copy trading and also if you want to buy some cryptocurrency within your account. But just beware of those spread fees. Orca seems really good, it's great they're adding US shares, but I'm afraid I think their FX fee is just a bit too high for me. Still cheap overall, but compared to some of the others, I probably wouldn't recommend them at the moment. If you just want to buy some UK companies and UK ETFs, then go for it, but just be careful when you're buying those US shares. So hopefully that's given you some more options, kind of gives you an idea of what kind of accounts to go for. I'm going to upload plenty more beginner-friendly guides and kind of explain more about stocks, ETFs, and all that kind of stuff soon. And you can also track my journey to investing right up to $1 million. My ISA is currently at around 127,000, and I've got a new series where I'm going from 0 to 100,000. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and stick around for those. I'll leave episode 1 of that up here, and also another video you might like, so do check those out. And thank you guys for watching. If you've got any questions, ask me down below, and good luck on your investing journey.